Hello and welcome to the first day of sessions at the EGX Theatre in 2019. Coming up next we've got a session on Horus, but now with a deep dive on Dying Light 2, please welcome Timon from Techland.
Hi guys. Oh, you can hear me, that's good. Wow, I can't really see you. I hope you can see me, and can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Is the EGX good for you so far? Cool. Hi guys, once again, my name is Timon Smektawa, and I am the lead game designer of Dying Light 2. I have said this specific phrase thousands of times already, as I get an absolute honor of presenting the work of our team at events like Gamescom, E3, and now EGX. But this place, this time, and basically you guys, this is special for me, and let me explain why. So, 6 years ago, I was doing a very similar presentation for Dying Light 1 at EGX 2013. It was my first ever public presentation in video game industry, and I was scared shitless. I was absolutely nervous, especially that I was going on stage right after Mr. David Cage. So, you know, he's extremely outspoken, basically a legend, and I was going on there just like a no-name from Poland, from a studio not many people knew. So as you can see, as you will see in a bit, it didn't really go that well. So maybe let's just get a reminder of that moment. So that's me. Can you hear me? You guys are the first ones. Extremely nervous, as I am right now. So please help me out this time, because this is my moment to get things right. So please keep your fingers crossed, and I hope everything will go well. Thank you. Thanks so much. So, with that said and done, we can go to the meat of the presentation, and this is a breakdown of the gameplay reveal of Dying Light 2 that we have published at the back of August. So not that far ago. If you haven't seen it, please do, because this is basically 26 minutes of pure, unfiltered Dying Light goodness. And what will happen today is I will talk about it, I will show you bits and pieces of it, stop at specific moments, and explain a little bit about what's happening on the screen and giving you more context about it. Of course, the best place to watch the demo is our official YouTube channel. So if you find time, please go visit it, subscribe. This will be your best source of news about Dying Light 2. So what will happen, what we'll see today is, and what you probably have seen in the gameplay reveal video, is a mission that's a very crucial moment in Dying Light 2's narrative, as drinking water in the city is just about to come to an end. The demo starts in the Fisheye, a tavern in the central part of the city where survivors meet. It is owned by our friend Frank, who believes the only person that can solve the drinking water problem is the Colonel, a man with bad reputation who leads a group called the Renegades out of the city's pumping station. Frank uses his status in the city to call up a meeting between the Renegades, the guys from the Colonel, and the officers of the two main factions that operate in the city. You can see them here. This is Jack Matt from the Peacekeepers and Juan Reiner from the Scavengers. And our hero, Aiden Caldwell, is invited as well. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah. Where have you been?
Around town.
Drink. Need to rest?
No, I'm okay. I'll be okay. They don't know?
That we've run out of water? No, they don't.
Were you gonna tell them?
If we work things out with the Colonel, I won't have to.
What if we don't?
Then tomorrow, this place is done. Either way, tonight should be a party.
Matt, it's time. Let's go.
Matt?
I'm drinking. This is why we're screwed. How's this fuckhead gonna get along with anyone?
Enough! Look, fellas, either the Colonel turns on his gold-plated taps, or we're all dead. So seeing as he's graciously agreed to talk, We're gonna dress up real nice and go to his island on our very best behavior. Now move your ass, Matt.
Only if I can keep heating. After the slaughter.
So this is basically your first look at the city. And we have started working on the game by creating a setting for it. And we wanted to create a place that could engage players and make them interested in it for weeks, months, and even years. To be honest, we had a very good reason to do that because we had one guy that kept playing Dying Light 1 for 4,500 hours, so a lot. So we wanted to create a place, a space, a setting where he could spend all of those hours in. I think we have came up with something quite unique, something that we call the modern Dark Ages. We wanted to have a place that's familiar enough so you don't feel alienated, but also different. Also one that could raise your interest, curiosity, so you want to discover it. So Dying Light 2 takes place in a fictional European metropolis, huge, once beautiful place, now destroyed by an outbreak of a virus that brought about society's collapse 15 years after the events of the first game. We call this place The City, just The City, as this is probably the last human settlement still standing on planet Earth. The fun fact is, it was the same about Rome in ancient times. Everyone was referring to it as just the city because basically it was the only city that counted. But to be honest, Rome wasn't a direct inspiration for the look of our city, but it was indeed inspired and modeled after a lot of different European cities, places that we know from being this great parkour space like Paris, or German cities like Berlin or Kiel, or one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, which is Budapest. Even Wrocław, the home place of our studio, got in the mix, and you can see an example of that on the screen. So on the left, you see a water tower which stands in one of the central parts of Wrocław, our city. And because fighting over resources and fighting over water is an extremely important part of the Dying Light narrative, we wanted to have it in the game. So you can see the way it went from being a real location in Wrocław, being a concept art, and then being present in the city with the modern Dark Ages treatment. The idea of modern Dark Ages came to us from our art director, Paweł Selinger, who brought it up quite early in the development of the game. The Dark Ages were the times where we as humankind took a great step backwards and reverted towards bad and ugly about our species. We found that clash of medieval and modern extremely inspiring, and we are using the modern Dark Ages concept as a guide in some of our design decisions, in our visuals, and of course, the narrative. That's why you will see plenty of characters in DL2, in Dying Light 2, going back to medieval ways of thinking. If someone stole something, he needs to lose his hand. If someone killed someone, then it's an eye for an eye. But modern Dark Ages is not just about the narrative. When you see a mall, a police station, or any other modern building, we either look for a specific shape in it or add wooden fortifications to it, and suddenly they all start looking like medieval fortresses, or medieval villages, or medieval settlements. Our weapons are primal and brutal, like something straight from Game of Thrones, but they're all made from modern materials. Even our infected are a part of it, as their look was directly inspired by medieval illnesses like Black Plague and leprosy. You will see plenty of modern Dark Ages concept in the demo, and the clash of modern and medieval is most visible there where it all starts, in District 2, one out of 7 unique regions that we'll have in the game. So let's go back to it.
Coming or what?
What, are you not going?
There's a lot of them down there. Things will get fucked up at the castle, I guarantee it. You got a plan B?
I'll improvise.
What if he improvises?
It'll work out.
You so sure about that?
Frank!
Fuck! Knew it!
Stay with us. You get after those fuckers. I'll look after him.
What happened?
What happened? Those fucking renegades shot him. Where were you? and hold still. Hey, catch that truck, or you'll never get onto that alley.
Just keep him alive.
Stay in contact. Now run! Damn it! Run!
Hold on, Frank.
Medic!
So what you saw there, deciding whether to stay with Frank or chasing the truck, was the first of many choices and consequences moments in the demo. But we'll talk about that later. Before I move to explain that, I would like to emphasize that the most important thing for us was to keep what makes Dying Light, was to keep the DNA of Dying Light and its very core. And that core is exceptional agility and brutal first-person combat. So starting with combat, our goal was to add more tactics to every combat encounter, especially those fought against humans. We want you to be constantly aware of what's happening on the screen, of the abilities of your enemies, of where they are, of what kind of group they form. And we also want you to constantly remind yourself what kind of tools and moves you have at your disposal. We want you to win those encounters with your own skills, with what you put inside, what you put in the controller, how you interact with it, not with bigger numbers on a weapon or pure luck. Therefore, you need to have a complete control over what's happening on the screen. And this philosophy translates to all elements of our combat design. And we were, I would say, crazy enough to even change some of the things players liked and loved about the implementation in the first game. Like, for example, weapon modding. So in Dying Light 1, you could modify your weapon with a schematic for something which we called the electrical impact. Basically, an attack which could, if you hit an enemy, he would fly over and some sparks would go flying. But in Dying Light 1, it was all based on chance. It happened randomly. So it was against the idea that we want to give you complete control over the action. We want you to feel tactical about it. So in Dying Light 2, effects like this need to be activated first, first you need to find a correct moment to activate them, to do it. But when you do it right, you always know what will happen when you swing your weapon, and that gives you more control, and that connects you more with the experience. So once again, let's see how this looks in Dying Light 2. So activate it, and then the effect. The same goes for parkour, or as we call it, the natural movement. We wanted to have an environment and a moveset that would allow every player to traverse the world with ease, as this was one of the most unique points of Dying Light 1. But we also wanted to create a space where more skilled players could show their efficiency, could move around the world with bigger skill, with bigger efficiency, doing cooler tricks. For that, we have doubled the number of parkour moves. We have connected some of them to different pieces of geometry. We have also changed the inputs, so not all of the moves are executed with the press of the same button. And we have spaced out all of those geometry pieces around the district. So as you play the game, you constantly experience new moves. In other words, we wanted to add more game to our parkour. Another cool addition is the introduction of dynamic geometry, parts that move, rotate, bend, or change shape, which you can use while you're parkouring. And this was possible because we have moved the game to our new engine, so-called C engine. So again, let's see all of the parkour moves from the demo in one sequence.
We're working here.
Okay, so again, let's stop there, as this needs a little more explaining, as this is an evolution of another gameplay pillar for Dying Light 1, the day and night cycle. We approached this differently this time around, as we wanted to make the difference between the day and night even bigger. That's why we introduced a rule that we call the day is for humans, but the night is for the infected. And this became a foundation for a lot of subsequent design decisions in the area of day and night cycle. So when we said that the day is for humans, it meant that we had to find a place for all those hordes of infected. Because of the rules of the Dying Light universe, we knew it had to be a place devoid of any sun rays, of any sources of UV light. So we decided to move the majority of our infected inside the interiors, dark passages, and other places like that during the day. This connects very well with the idea that Dying Light 2 takes place 15 years after the original game, and it's a proof that the infection and the infected have evolved and have adapted to the new circumstances. This also paved a way for a new gameplay element of Dying Light, so-called dark zones. Places full of sleeping infected where you don't really want to wake them up. So we advise you to place those sequences stealthily. We have presented that at last year's E3. It wasn't a public demo, so not that many people saw that, but you can have a look at a moment from it. So what you want to do there is not to wake them up. So don't get too close, don't make too much noise. Basically, don't do anything that can make them wake up. But sometimes, as in the demo from this year, you just fall inside a place like this, which means you basically only have one viable option. Run as fast as you can and use all of your parkour skills and all of the tools to escape. What can help you is UV light, any source of it, a UV flare or a UV flashlight, which you can upgrade as you play the game. So now let's see how this type of gameplay with Dark Zones looks in this year's demo. Dark Zones are also interesting because the hero of the game, Aiden Caldwell, is infected as well. Of course, he is still human, but if you don't control the infection with UV light or antizin pills, he will cross the line to becoming, well, a zombie. Because of that, you can't really stay too long inside Dark Zones in darkness, and that's additional tension to the Dark Zones themselves. But it's not all about limitations. This is actually something I cannot really say too much at this point, but let me just tease you that there are benefits of being in that stage. Oh, and by the way, this is interesting. The bracelet you saw at the start of the video is a GRE device called Biomarker. It tells you how much time you have left before you go fully infected. Of course, you don't want all of those LEDs to go red. Okay, so it's finally the time to go back to the biggest new element of Dying Light 2, the choices and consequences. So this was a core part of the initial design for the game right from the start. And the reason for it was the fact that we have realized, we have discovered that with Dying Light 1, we have created this great, amazing sandbox game which allowed you to find your own solutions to problems, which allowed you to express yourself through gameplay, which was all about player agency, except for one thing, the story, the backbone of all of it. Initially, we were thinking in a more traditional way, a more traditional take on non-linear story, branching narratives, things like that. But quite early, we have discovered that in terms of consequences for player actions, the biggest impact comes from the moments where your choices and your decisions change the world around you, and you can actually feel, experience those changes through gameplay. Where player decisions added, removed, or transferred the actual mechanics. That led us to the concept that we call the narrative sandbox, a system where your decisions and actions allow you to activate or deactivate different parts of the game. For example, introduce a new enemy, change a behavior of an enemy you know, transform a huge part of the map, or add hundreds of interactive objects to the whole map, for example, zip lines or exploding cars. We use a lot of different models for consequences of player actions to keep them engaged at all times. So sometimes these changes are small but spread across the whole map, as with the zipline example. But sometimes it's one big change that uncovers or transforms a big part of the open world or destroys an important location, like in this example. The same goes for moments of choice. Sometimes you have all the time in the world to make the decision. But sometimes you have to act quick because an event or an NPC will make that decision for you. Sometimes you make the choice through dialogues, but sometimes it is based on gameplay, where you have to choose which one of the two of escaping guys you want to pursue, and other situations like this. Usually, we give you a lot of hints about the upcoming choice and its possible consequences. But there are moments where we want you to risk it all, and basically, as we do in real life, make a decision without knowing everything. So now let's see how the choices from the E3 demo pan out for Aiden and the whole city.
I'm on the island. What's with the butcher thing? All I see is regular people. Huh. Yeah, I should talk to the colonel.
The time for talking's over. Mike's dead.
Leona, there's nothing to fear. You've come to kill me, have you?
I've come to turn on the pumps.
I won't let you do that. Where's Frank?
He's dead.
Dead. How?
Your man shot him.
Wait, Sam. You saw it happen? You saw my man shoot?
Well, Matt did.
Matt, I sent 5 men. Where are they?
Hey, what happened?
Look, we can count bodies later. The city's waiting for water.
Stop. Water? You can't turn on the water from here. They played us, don't you understand?
Don't listen to him. Turn on the pump.
You do know what he wants, right? He wants you to kill me. Open the doors and let his butchers in. You want water for the city? I know how to get it, but you've got to trust me.
For fuck's sake, he killed Frank.
The Colonel looks like he knows what he's talking about, but can we trust him? On the other hand, we really need that drinking water, and we need it today.
I'm turning on those pumps.
What a pity.
Okay. Yep. It froze for a second, but I can explain to you what happened. And of course, please go watch the gameplay reveal video because it's all there. So turning on the pumps reveals a new open world region for you to explore with new quests, new mechanics, and new things to find. It also changes the direction of the narrative because Colonel was, of course, right. There really was a plot against him. But only he knew the whole area was flooded for a reason. And you'll be able to discover that reason when you play the game. Thank you for seeing me explaining Dying Light 2 gameplay reveal demo. And now it's time for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please ask them, and I will answer all of them.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Timon. I'm
Hi.
a great fan of the work that Techland does.
Thank you so much.
I've got so many questions I could ask, but I'll keep it to a quick 2. The first one's about the navigational mesh in Dying Light 2. In the first one, it's not dynamic. You've only got the one, unless it doesn't change.
Yes.
And I realised when you had the first trailer that you've got like dynamic bridges as the environment changes. So does this C engine now support that dynamic nav mesh that can change?
Absolutely. So there are 2 things about that. First one is the dynamic environment, which I have touched on briefly. So this allows us, this is possible because of the new technology. And it's also because I would say the lead gameplay programmer for parkour, a guy named Bartosz Kulon, he's like crazy fan for all Mario games. And of course, in Mario games, you see all those moving platforms everywhere. So he always wanted to introduce that in Dying Light, and he wasn't able in the first game. So then when we got the new engine, which is our own engine, an engine we have built in-house specifically for our games, he really put a lot of effort into making this possible in C engine. So yeah, this happens. Also, another thing is that the nav mesh changes with the world changes, which was also a technical difficulty we had to overcome, but we did it, and now because of your actions, you change the nav mesh, like not only with moving objects, but also by changing parts of the open world. By the way, very technical questions.
My second question, real quick, is something you mentioned that took my attention, which was about the GRE bracelet.
Yes.
You might not be able to say yes or no, but will the GRE make a comeback in Dying Light 2?
Can I say it? Yes, it will.
Cool.
Okay.
Right, that's all I wanted to know anyway. Thanks.
Thanks.
So much, Simon.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Hi, just a question on the choices you make in the game. Will it be where you have loads of different outcomes and loads of endings, or will it be more focused with a good, a neutral, and a bad?
Okay, so there are quite a few different endings to the game. But to be honest, we don't obsess over them as much because the narrative is just one part of it. I think the biggest thing for us is, and we hope it will also be the biggest thing for the players, is the state they will leave the city in after they complete the game. Because this is where really the magic happens. I think all of us, or majority of us here, played a game with non-linear narrative that leads to one out of many endings. But there aren't that many games that actually allow you to change the world around you and the gameplay mechanics inside. And this is also very important for us because Dying Light 2, the same as Dying Light 1, supports co-op. And you can play the game in 4-player co-op. And the thing is that when you play the game, you always understand who is the host of the game, so you play in the world of the host. But then the next evening, one of the guys from your group can invite you to his own world, to his game session. And we hope to achieve, we hope to deliver on the promise that every player will have a significantly different world, sandbox space to play the game in. So yes, there are different endings. It's more than 3, but there are also different states and shapes you can leave the city in. And when you start looking at that, I would say they come in hundreds. Thank you so much. Any more questions? I know this could be kind of brief to you, so I can expand on any subject that I touched on here. Yes?
Hi. So in Dying Light 1, the safe zones, so I'm a bit... do they make a return, and is there much more to do with them once you've cleared them out, other than just having an area to recover in?
I didn't hear the start of the question, sorry.
Safe zones.
Safe zones, yes. Yes, safe zone, there are safe zones in the world. You can build them or activate them by your actions. And this is actually connected to another new thing that we have in Dying Light 2, because Dying Light 2 is a game where we actually want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. We started the game with the meaning that says people think of themselves to survive, but will they survive if they only think of themselves? And this goes to another concept that in the game, you make choices between being selfish, thinking only about yourself, and being collective and thinking about the community around you. And safe zones is connected to this concept, as creating safe zones is kind of playing on the side of being collective, where you actually make those things appear in the city, and you will see survivors appearing there as well. There will be quest givers, people that will tell you stories or will want you to get interested in some kind of additional activities. So yes, there are safe zones, but there is like a huge narrative layer put on top of them.
Thank you.
Earlier you were talking about how the gameplay is based around different stuff that you can do instead of just stats.
Yes.
Will you still have damage stats on weapons?
Yes, absolutely. So this is an action RPG game. I think we are just putting more emphasis on action. So yes, there's damage on weapons. There's like stamina use on weapons. We also introduce a new feature, let's say a system, maybe it's too big of a word, but a feature which is affixes, where your weapons have small boosts with specific actions. So for example, there's a bigger chance for a critical hit, or they work better against specific types of enemies. So there's this space where the weapons are really varied, where there's a lot of variety in the weapons and their statistics. But aside from that, it all comes from your skills. Like, you can find a weapon that's better, and of course it will ease the game a little for you. But unless you learn how to play the game and start using the correct skills, reading your opponents, then it will be very hard for you. You cannot overcome the challenges by having bigger weapons. Any more questions, guys? Like, I woke up at 3:30 a.m. today to get to you guys, so please use me as much as you want. And
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
I haven't played Dying Light in a little while, so I might get this feature wrong. The Quartermaster system in the original Dying Light, which provided free items and free weapons every day you return to it, will that feature be making a return? Or?
Absolutely. So we plan to support Dying Light 2. The plan is to start with the support of Dying Light 2 on a similar level that we have reached with Dying Light 1. And of course, we want to take this further. So already we have, aside from the thing you mentioned and a couple of other things that people know from Dying Light, we have a strict plan how we want to support the game for minimum 2 years and a lot of ideas what we can do further. So absolutely, those things will make a comeback.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
My question is, will Aiden's infection level have an effect on how the world is interacting with him or reacting to him outside of combat?
Yes, absolutely. So, like a huge part of the narrative is based on people reacting to what Aiden does, and also him trying to develop or expanding those skills is also a decision that player makes, and this has an impact on the world and the narrative as well. So, yeah, I think I answered the question. Yes, that's it.
Hi.
Hi.
Did anyone buy the My Apocalypse edition of Dying Light 1? And will you be doing a collector's edition of Dying Light 2?
The first question, I don't really know. I think I checked a couple of months ago, and I think no one really bought it. It was kind of like, I must say, a publicity stunt we pulled where you could buy an extremely expensive collector's edition of Dying Light 1. It was just one copy, which came with like what it was like a shack survival shelter. But I don't think anyone thought that zombies coming alive or people getting infected in that way was a serious threat. So no one really spent that amount of money. But yes, there will be a collector's edition for Dying Light 2. I cannot reveal more, but yes, it will happen.
Great, thanks.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I can't really see you, so yes, because of the lights.
Hi, my one question is that with Dying Light the Following, obviously had quite an open world kind of area. Will we have anything like that in Dying Light 2, or is it very much more all just city-based?
So we want to keep it focused. So it's city. There are no areas outside of the city. Also with the Following, you probably want to ask about vehicles. So yes, there are vehicles in the game, but in the core Dying Light 2, they're kept to maybe not a minimum, but they are kept in quite constrained areas because we want players to focus on parkour. But no one knows what will happen after we release the core Dying Light 2 game.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Animal, yes, we have one more.
It's another really technical question again.
Okay.
So in Dying Light 1, one thing they talked about a lot was the lighting technology they had. And you used a lot of EMV probes and a lot of like sunlight, and it was really cool. It's not talked about in Dying Light 2, but obviously with a new engine, what kind of new lighting features are there, or do you not know?
I'm the worst person to ask because when it comes to technical stuff, I'm not really that, let's say, fluent. So I cannot really precisely answer that question. I focus on gameplay, but what we can do is you can ask me like when I come off stage, and I will get you email and I will send you back the answer.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
thank
you. Yes, we have one more. But please not make it technical, okay?
I promise it's not a technical question.
Okay.
It's just about firearms in the gameplay.
Okay.
Are they coming back? How are they being changed?
Yes, so there are some firearms in the game, but they are very limited. It's because of the modern Dark Ages concept. See, the society have gone back like to medieval times. We lost the governments, we lost the technology as well. So basically, people aren't really able to produce firearms as we know them today. So there are firearms, but they are different. They have this DIY feel to them. And if someone has a firearm from the pre-apocalypse, it's basically like a sorcerer that has like a magic wand. So it happens in the game, but it's limited to so that like the real guns, rifles, shotguns, they are limited to specific moments where you really see someone extremely powerful doing something extremely powerful. Thank you. But of course, when it comes to ranged weapons, we have bows, crossbows, all of that medieval stuff.
Hi, a quick question here. It's about leveling up in the game here. It's about leveling up in the game here. So, you know, let's say the player levels up here. Would it have like different zones that have different levels, or would it be like one level throughout the whole game?
So there are places and zones that are more demanding than the others. So you can go basically, the game starts, I said the game has 7 very different regions. It starts with one which is basically supposed to teach you the rules of the world, and then you go to the remaining 6, which are like this huge open world where you can go anywhere you want. But you will see that there are some places which is extremely hard for you. So you can still go there, but it's better if you gather up your skills, gather up your inventory, and just basically progress your character.
Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe the last one, yes?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, of course. And I can see you, because if you stand in the spotlight, I can see you. That's good.
So you mentioned about when you're playing co-op, there's a host and other people join the game.
Yes.
When you make choices, will the host make the choice and the other players just kind of go along?
Yes, so this is something that we had a lot of discussions about in the studio. And yes, when you play in the host's world, he makes the choices. It's very important for us, because then if you play with, I wouldn't say random people, but just people, they can mess the game for you. And because when that choice happens, the game saves and you have to live with the consequences. So we didn't want to allow that. So yes, the host makes the choices, but what happens when you play in co-op, you see suggestions from other members of the team. So this is a way for us so you can guide the host what you think he should choose. But it's up to him what he chooses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think that was the last one. So thank you very much. I hope it wasn't that bad as 6 years ago, maybe slightly better. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, and see you next time at DGX next year, probably. Thank you. Bye-bye.